Welcome to all of you. My name is Alix Litwack, and I am your resource queen. And with me today at the inaugural podcast that we are doing is an osteopathic physician with over 30 years of experience. She's got healing hands and a good heart. And together we love CBD. So we decided that the first topic we were going to do for the Ask the Resource Queen podcast was CBD. So let me introduce and please welcome Dr. Rebecca Anderson. So let us start at the beginning because it's a really good place to start. And I think that a lot of people don't really know that hemp was huge in this country for years and years and years. So I'm going to let Rebecca start and talk about the hemp plant and what changed, what happened.
First of all, I never heard of CBD before 1 year ago. And that just to show you how fast this thing is moving, okay? But to really understand, it's just not about CBD. It just happens to be CBD is legal right now in 50 states and has the most access into the history, into cannabis, okay? So I'm gonna briefly give some history. I don't know how much detail you want, but in my opinion, to really understand what's happening, you need to understand about the history of hemp. It's probably one of the oldest plants around, over 10 to 12,000 years. It has a history, mostly starting over in Asia, and through the routes of travel and trading, the hemp plant has ended up being everywhere, coming into America back in 1600s through the Jamestown colony. People, brought it. So it has a history of being legal for up until 1937. So what the heck happened? I mean, the history is now, let me just back up 1 minute because one of the problems I see in talking about cannabis is the nomenclature. There's a lot of words being thrown out there. So I just want to kind of give you the exact nomenclature so we all know what we're talking about. Now this goes to botany, just real quick. There's a family of plants. I can't even pronounce the name, Cannabracia, something like that. Then the genus, there's 5 genuses. One of them being Cannabis stativa, okay? Cannabis sativa has 2 subspecies, Cannabis sativa and Cannabis stevia L, which it was named for another botanist. The first one, the slang term is marijuana. The second one, the slang term is hemp. And they're biochemically different plants, okay? They have different constituents. In general, marijuana, high in THC, which is psychoactive, low in CBD, hemp, high in CBD, and low in THC. Now remember, these are only things that have come about in the past 50 years. People didn't know about it, but it was used all over. And people naturally, as an herb and as a plant, figured out different ways to use it, okay? Whether it was the psychoactive part or other parts that are medicinal, it's been used for years. Plus the hemp plant, structurally, it's a more woody, stemmy plant, and they learned how you could use it to make products like rope, paper, sails, and stuff like that. It was the first plant ever cultivated. You could probably say it was the invention of agriculture, which then brought in modern civilization. So it's been around forever, okay? Then
What happened in the 30s?
Well, it is really a sad story, actually. It starts in the 1910, the Mexican Revolution, okay? That began immigration of Mexicans, mostly into California, okay? And they became Mexican Americans. But Mexico knew the plant as a recreational drug. They knew the psychoactive part. America was it was the major crop in America, hemp. We grew it and to make products out of. So we're using it as an industrial type thing. Some doctors knew some about the THC and had created an extract. In the 1800s, you could go into any pharmacy and buy an extract medically that had THC in it, and it was used as a medicine. But it wasn't, the recreational use didn't happen until the immigrations of Mexican after the Mexican War, okay? So that was a big part of the use. This also was around the time of the Prohibition. So as alcohol use went down, use of recreational marijuana became more prevalent, okay? There were a lot of things that were going on around this time. Also around this time, you have hemp being the major industrial crop, but we had people who wanted to shift from using hemp into using forests to make paper and to use cotton for clothes. These were very wealthy people. So there was a kind of like a conspiracy that happened in order, and what they did right around this time in 1930 was the first beginnings of the DEA. And there was a man, Henry Astringer. He was appointed as the first head of the future DEA. Well, we just had, by this time, Prohibition was ending. I think it ended in 1933. So his big thing that he had demonized alcohol, now it was legal again. And he needed something to work with. And he, along with some of the people who wanted to see hemp illegal, began to demonize marijuana. They made up things. William Randolph Hearst, who owned all these forests and wanted to make paper, he had newspapers. So he printed all these articles of things that this DEA czar was saying, and they just demonized the drug. And unfortunately, along with that, they began to demonize immigrants who brought it in, Mexican people, okay? They began to say things that weren't true. That's where the whole thing about crime, about it made them sexual and you had to worry about your kids. This was also the time, post-slavery, post-Civil War, but we had a whole culture group of Black Americans who were still trying to find a way to integrate. Many of them were into music. This was with jazz. Alcohol, with Prohibition, many Black people were some of the first people using recreational marijuana. Again, they started using that fear of, because we still haven't integrated post-slavery, he was using that as the fear. He was using fear to produce and stigmatize not only groups of people who were using marijuana, but marijuana itself. And it was so successful, but by 1937 was the marijuana tax law, which basically made it illegal and introduced penalties, criminal penalties to use it, produce it, distribute it. And it was just that quick. Those kind of circumstances like all came together and it was illegal, where for all this time it hadn't been.
But what happened is the hemp plant, which was under the family of cannabis plants,
Right.
got lumped in.
Exactly.
And so everybody thought hemp is just as bad for you as cannabis that's high in THC.
Well, it was just all illegal. What do nobody was going to mess with it.
So it really wasn't until 2014, till the 2014 Farm Bill, where the first Hemp Act came into being, where they started allowing universities mostly to grow hemp and then create an avenue for manufacturers to make hemp products and CBD products. And then just this past December, the 2018 Farm Bill with the new Hemp Act passed and took hemp, CBD hemp, out of the controlled substances category. Up until this point, it was no different buying heroin, they thought, than buying CBD. They were all listed as a class 1 narcotic. So that's a huge deal. And part of this explosion, that now CBD is legal in all 50 states, and it's not the same as a controlled substance. So let me ask you that question. If it's low THC, the hemp plant, 0.3% or less, can you get high? Are there any
No.
psychotropic effects?
No.
Non-addictive, right?
True.
Will you have any withdrawal symptoms?
Nope.
If you're on it for months and months and months and all of a sudden you stop?
No. But here's the thing that people need to understand, that the reason CBD and even cannabis-based use, why it's so important is the beginning, we finally figured out how it works. That's the big discovery. And I'm telling you, I mean, it's a major discovery, health discovery. And the people who, it occurred over time, and it was international. There were some scientists in Israel, first people to discover to make the THC molecule and synthesize it. So there was different things that happened where then they theorized, if there's this molecule, then and had a receptor in the brain, that was the first brain receptor, then we must make stuff, our own stuff. And that's when they finally found out about cannabinoids. I wish that it wasn't through cannabis that we first learned about this system, because we call it the endocannabinoid system. And that once people hear that word, they tend to want to, that stigma, comes back. But this system, I think it was finally, it came over about 15 years. But what happened is, I think it was even through a Pfizer drug company, took a very high potent THC and made it what we call radioactive. They tag it, and then they can follow it through the body, and they mapped out this whole receptor system. And it blew them away, like, oh my God, it's everywhere, and it controls everything. This is why people, even though there hasn't been a lot of specific research in using either THC or CBD, the research that was done that shows that this system works and that these products affect it tells us why it has so many effects, okay? Every system, cardiovascular system, your respiratory system, every one of them is overseen by the ECS system. Okay.
Wait a second. So the endocannabinoid system, the ECS system, that wasn't discovered till the late 80s, something like that.
By 92, it was finally mapped out.
So it's a regulatory system?
It's a modulator system.
A modulator.
Okay? It modulates. And I mean, honestly, I can't tell you how important this discovery is. And these people are going to win a Nobel Prize. They just haven't put it together because it's so slow to filter down. You look at a lot of discoveries take 20, 30 years to come out into the public or the medical community, and this is moving so fast because people are using it on their own and having so many effects, whether they're using it illegally with THC or legally as CBD with less than 3%. But this is the key to understanding why it works and why it works differently in everybody, okay? This is a real fast system. It's everywhere. Okay, and it's on it's every cell has a membrane, and there are receptors on all these cells that CBD or any cannabinoids affect. You also should know that cannabis is not the only cannabinoids out there. There are other ones, echinacea, ginger root, other ones, which now we can understand why they've had effects for those people who've used health products for a long time. So not the only ones, but they are a great source, and they're really strong.
So you have an endocannabinoid system, which is a modulating system, and it has receptors that are throughout your brain and body, right? So there's, what's brain and nervous system?
Okay, let's just take a step back so you understand what this really means. So what receptors do, they're sitting on the cell and they're listening. They're listening for disturbances, too much, too little. And that's when they then create right there in the cell, they can make what we call endogenous, made inside of us, cannabinoids. And there's several of them. First one discovered was amantadine by an Israeli scientist. And he used the word, it comes from the Sanskrit word meaning ananda, meaning bliss, because it had an upliftment, you know. So, and there's more every day. I mean, they're discovering more and more all the time. But it's made right there. So this is how we can live in a very small, the human body has to stay within a certain range. Temperature, acidity, all kinds of stuff. How do we do it? This is the system that does it. Right there, these receptors signal some imbalance. It could be in your respiratory system. It could be in your cardiovascular system. It could be in your immune system. It could be in any of these substances, cannabinoids, are created right there, bring it into balance. They may inhibit something, they may stimulate it. They can do both. See, this is it's a modulating system, regulating.
How did we get this far?
Good question.
Seriously. I mean, we know about the endocrine system, we know about the digestive
Because
system.
it was made illegal, that's why. So nobody
studied it.
There are a few brave scientists from 1937 on, not only in the United States, but internationally, who kept working on this and finally pieced it together. But that's why, because it was made illegal. So it slowed everything down.
Okay, everybody who is a mammal has an endocannabinoid system, yes?
As long as they have a vertebrae.
Okay, a vertebrate. So all vertebrates have an endocannabinoid
which is
system.
most mammals. So animals, it's a system, it's grown over the years. That's the other thing too, over history. See, now that we know about it, we're looking backwards at it and understanding that it developed over time, but it's been there from day one in some form.
And how do you know if your endocannabinoid system is doing its job? For example, you can tell when your digestive system is not functioning well, right? You can tell when when your respiratory system, if your immune system is down. How do you know your endocannabinoid system isn't working?
You can't have an imbalance. That you call it whatever you want. Indigestion, pain. You can't have a symptom without this system being disturbed. Can't happen because it mediates. That's what mediates it.
So it's like the master switch.
Absolutely.
For everything.
Yes, it turns things on and on, depending on what's happening. That's why this is so important. I'm telling you, we've been missing out for so long. This is going to change medicine.
She's telling you.
That's the only reason I'm doing this. I don't, but it will change medicine. This is why I'm so excited about it, and it's science, well, let's just say medical science has not caught up with this. But look what's happened in just a year. I mean, I'd never even heard of it.
Right. So there are, so we have this modulating system. Everybody's got it. It reacts positively or negatively, or it reacts in some way to whatever stimuli or imbalance is happening, and tells you loud and clear there's an imbalance. So how does taking CBD as a supplement then work to get that system in balance?
You have to understand, we're still at a kind of rudimentary understanding, okay? I call this the shotgun therapy stage that we're in. We're just throwing it in your system and see what happens. But it's okay to do it that way because of the safety profile of all cannabis, Okay, even though there's a psychoactive component, it has safety. There are no receptors in places like the brainstem where opiates can cause respiratory depression and kill you. There aren't any receptors in places like that. And there's no, it breaks down so fast, there's no, you're not going to hurt yourself by taking it, even though we're not quite sure what's happening. This is why you have such a varied response from everybody. Everybody takes a different amount. Now, remember, this is a system that's controlling. Let's say you're having GI problems, but you're having respiratory problems. You're having immune problems. What you need, we don't know yet. We haven't got that far to know what dose, how much you may need, or how long or how often. So we're really at the stage where you just want to throw it in and see what happens. The problem I see with CBD right now is what we call the extraction process is expensive, and it makes CBD expensive. Now that's going to change over time too, but.
What it sounds like you're saying is we're in a world of experimentation, and that the risk factor is very low. I mean, can you overdose on CBD?
Nope.
If you take too much, what happens?
You waste your money, I guess. It breaks down too fast.
It breaks down. Even though it's fat soluble. It is fat soluble, so fat soluble nutrients tend to stay in your system longer, but.
Let's just say the ECS system has three parts to it. Receptors on the cell, it produces cannabinoids, and it has special enzymes that break it down. And that's the key to it.
Okay, so there are no actual rules. For example, if you go to a drugstore and you want to take an over-the-counter pain reliever, there are instructions on that tell you 2 every 4 hours. Whether you are 90 pounds, 150 pounds, or 350 pounds, correct? That's correct. So there aren't really instructions when you purchase a bottle of CBD. I mean, there are notations, but how much do they mean?
What you're trying to do is you cannot take cannabis compounds and this system and put it into the typical way we've been doing medicine, which is we have a symptom and we give it an anti-something and smash it. You know, you have a fever, we give you an anti-fever. You give a whatever, which is what we've been trying to do. This system, it controls, when it goes away, you can't sleep well. You're going to have anxiety. Your mood's going to change. So what we've done is try to take each one of those things, and we have given you sleeping pills, or we give you whatever to try to counter it. So the way this is going to be used as they start figuring it out better, it's not going to be the same way that we're used to using medicines. Okay, they're trying to balance this system. They're going to help figure out why aren't we modulating right? And I can tell you right now, if you have any kind of symptom of any kind, your ECS system is in disarray.
So you mean if you have pain, if you have inflammation, if you're not sleeping well at night, if you post-traumatic stress disorder, Parkinson's, epilepsy,
name it.
That means your ECS is not functioning at its best.
And so the idea of what scientists are trying to do, and as that filters down, we will have much more different directed medicines, most likely combinations of CBD and THC, something like that. Because it's different than what we've been used to doing, because we were just trying to smash these symptoms down, not knowing how they came about. And now they know. We know. It just hasn't filtered through, and we haven't gotten more specific. And you know, a lot of people want to know, I know you want to know about dosage. The best thing I could say is that we're starting to see that most people need more than what we're saying, because the system is in such disarray. And I don't know, when I take CBD or you take CBD, I don't know where it's going to be called. Where in you are those receptors signaling, help, we're out of balance, we need we need it here. It could be for pain. It could be for depression, anxiety. So it's hard to tell. That's why you never know. That's why people get different effects from it. We're not that specific yet. So again, that's why I say we're still at the shotgun therapy. And the safety profile is good enough that you should take it and play with it and see what happens. And usually that means trying to take more, slowly up it, and maybe we don't know the duration. Depending on what the problem is, the enzymes may break it down differently. So some people may need a dose once a day for one problem. Some people may need it a couple times a day. Now, we're already seeing a little bit, and this is mostly clinical, okay? A lot of people want to, again, say, oh, we don't have any research that this works. We do, because we know the research of this system, and we know it's been proven that THC affects it, and so does CBD. They're not the exact same molecules of amantadine, and I think it's 2G, but they're similar. They affect the receptors, okay? That's what we know. And they do it in different ways. Okay, they're all everywhere. They're in the brain, spinal cord, they're out in what we call the periphery, and they are related to every system. And every reaction that you have is mediated, always includes the immune system, which means inflammation is a prime cause of disease. It's probably the unifying theory of disease. Again, how medicine, because we didn't have this knowledge for years, how medicine has been trying to spot treatment everything, and I think they're going to see the big problem is inflammation. And that's what the these drugs are going to control.
All right, I'm going to ask one or two more little questions, and then it's up to all of you. I hope all of your brains are on high alert here to come over and ask a question. So there's a philosophy out there that people should take CBD low and slow. Start with a little bit and build up. So I have a feeling you don't feel that way.
No, not with my understanding and reading of this ECS system, and which I would, Google, we all can Google. I would Google it, and once you begin to understand it, you'll see. It's not that that's wrong, but this is a fast system. It works, when it calls for something, it wants it now, and then it can break it down. So I don't see any reason that you would start really slow and see what happens.
You're like front load.
I am.
Front load, do it all. Okay. Is there one product out there that works for all people?
No, and that's the problem. Okay, that's the problem. We're both here not recommending any particular brand, any particular way. I do think it makes a difference. And, the key is absorption. Okay, it is fat soluble typically, and there are companies out there trying to find different ways for you to absorb it better. That's important. How much are you getting when you take it? People absorb it different. The route of administration, whether you vape it or smoke it, comes much faster when you take it into your lungs. Or it's sublingual, you bypass what's called and I know you're going to ask the question, the liver and the cytochrome P450 enzyme that breaks everything down. And I'll explain that because that has been a concern. So we don't have enough information to know. And all I can tell people is try to find somebody that's reputable, who's informed themselves enough that can give you the latest information out there that you can try.
So there are four main delivery systems. You said vaping, sublingual, tinctures, liquid, elixirs, drops, pills, capsules, gel caps, and topicals. Although there is a fifth one that my mother doesn't like when I talk about because it's one of those unmentionables.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there are suppositories. So I'm just going to throw that out there, that they're out there, because think about it. If somebody's really sick and that's the only delivery system it's fast.
Any other drug has been used to get into the system, so can CBD use the
Right,
same
why
way.
not?
The difference between vaping or let's say inhaling and sublingual is you bypass what's called the another detox system, which means you're going to absorb less. Other than that, it doesn't matter how you take it, but the key is absorption. How much are you getting? And we just can't, as far as I can tell out there, we can't totally define that, you know, and people are trying really hard. Nanotechnology, different, you know, water soluble, all kinds of ways trying to get increase the absorption rate. But how are you going to have to tell right now? And one day we will have a test to test our ECS system and tell where you're deficient. I think it was in 2004, a man named Ethan Russo wrote a paper. He's a scientist. He worked for GW Pharmaceuticals, who just put out Epidiolex for epilepsy. He he theorized what he called the ECS deficiency syndrome. So you have to understand that this system hasn't been working well for a long, long time.
All right, who's going to be a brave soul and wants a door prize and wants to come up and ask a question or two? Come on up. Come up to the microphone. We are so excited. If you may introduce yourself, or if you're in witness protection, you may use an alias. We don't care. Whatever works for you. Right? Okay.
So my name's Jennifer, and I've noticed I've put my very old cat on CBD, and he no longer has the IBS problem because of the inflammation, I'm assuming, but you can answer that for me.
These are functional disorders, IBS, fibromyalgia, migraines. They're all really reacting to CBD. You know, and animals, they have the same system that we do. They respond really well. And that's how people are knowing. You're going to have to try it and see how you respond. And you're going to have to play with the dosing or the way you want to take it. You want to have somebody that can help you understand, especially as more and more information comes out, how to use it.
So do you feel like when you go to a doctor and you get prescribed a medication, that you're certain that that medication is going to work exactly as it's supposed to work in your body? Does anybody feel that way? No. And I think that's a hard concept because the Western medicine has made it so that if somebody writes you a prescription and they say that here, take this, and they say come back in 6 weeks, and you go back 6 weeks later and you say, well, I took it for 2 weeks and it gave me a headache, or it gave me a stomach ache, or I didn't like the way it made me feel. So then the doctor says, okay, let's try this. And then they write you another prescription for potentially a different doctor. How is CBD playing around, as you're saying, trying things out? How is it any different than that? I mean, in terms of, is it any more dangerous than that, or any more?
You're comparing kind of apples and
Apples and
oranges. I mean,
oranges. I know.
CBD, it's different because of this system that we know of. And just for example, we talk about these receptors that are on cell membranes. They can disappear from either lack of use. See, we don't know yet what all disturbs the system. You know, there's different kinds of insults. There are temperature insults, there's toxins, there's foods that affect it. There's all kinds of things. But the receptors, sometimes why CBD may be slow for people to show an effect and why you want to hang in there with it is because it helps you build more receptors. So you may have to wait to build the receptors before the receptors can hear what the imbalance is and make your endogenous or have something for the CBD to hook onto. I mean, that's a whole nother thing that's going on. And people, you don't realize that. We don't all have the same receptors. This is the key. It's the biggest discovery in this century. It just hasn't got out there yet.
So what you just said about rebuilding the receptors, to me, really puts all of this together, and everybody should have I saw back there, everybody just kind of shook their head So I would like you, in all honesty, to repeat it and kind of break it down a little bit more.
So, you're talking about a cell. We have skin cells. And just because I'm on the skin has both CBD and CB1 receptors. This is why lotions and things are so good. This is why it's going to become the #1 treatment for acne, for several different. But so you have a cell, heart cells, lung cells. These cells on the surface form these receptors, CB1, CB2, or the main ones, so they can disappear for some reason, or they can grow more, okay? And one of the things we know is that what we call exogenous cannabinoids, those are ones made from plants, whether it's cannabis plants or hemp, or there's other ones, ginger root, there's other ones. When you take them, they can stimulate the cell membrane to form more cells so that you have a better opportunity to hear. They're like antenna. They're listening for imbalances and have something that can hook into it and fix the imbalance.
That's it. You just said it. It's rebuilding already on top of one another. And that was the aha moment that
So-
all of you just kind of shook your head at.
So is that the reason why some people maybe do not feel the effects right away because their endocannabinoid system is so depressed?
Deficiency. This is what this scientist was trying to, he called it this ECS deficiency syndrome. And you're going to hear that term more and more and more. It's going to be that's what we're going to all have, basically.
I know you have a question there, young man.
I do.
Come to the mic, please.
We talked about speed and absorption. So my question is two-part, really. The first part goes to the issue of the carrier that's used, and as to whether or not the differences in the carriers affect that issue of speed and absorption. And my second question, and then I'll just go away from the mic. My second question is, I know that there has been a lot of recent interest in the nano products, and I'd like to know what you feel about the nano products, and do they truly reach the issue of speed and absorption?
Good question.
Good questions. Like I said, there are a lot of people working on how do we get exogenous cannabinoids into our system, okay? One has to do with the carrier, because, and I can't answer what's best. I really don't know. It's confusing, and I've tried to figure it out. And it may be that certain carriers work better for some people. I don't know.
When you say carrier, are you talking specifically like oil or water? And which kind of oil?
Okay, so we extract the compound, the CBD. Let's just use CBD. So we extract the CBD, okay, and we have to put it in something to get it into the body. We can put it in hemp oil itself. That's a common carrier. You can put it in olive oil. You can put it in
MCT.
right, MCT, which people know as coconut oil. You can, it can be vaped, okay? So there's different ways. Nanotechnology, is a technology that's being used in medicine, in different fields, because all it means is it's taking the particles and micronizing them. Anything smaller is easier absorbed. That's why a lot of times we take liquids instead of a solid compound, because it's easier to absorb. Or powders are easier than a pressed tablet. Okay, but so nano, in theory, and definitely in theory, I don't know, I can't be sure. There's not a lot of tests out there, but in theory, it should be absorbed faster and more.
Nano tends to work more quickly because it disperses more quickly because it's so tiny.
Then it's going to get used up faster, so you have to use it.
more often.
And
That
that's the whole, that's all the complexity of trying to figure out.
Okay.
So I'm Catherine, and thank you so much for being here. I just want to say this has been quite enlightening. So there's a lot of validity to what you're saying as, this is a new discovery, it took us a long time to figure it out. So my point is the CBD oil is not the end all be all. It doesn't solve every problem. What we need to do is, make sure that all the systems of our body are working at maximum. And this is one of the ways that really helps us and gets us moving.
Okay, so you're talking about one stress on our systems is structural and the role of trauma in changing that structure. But when we're off structurally, that's signaling our system to bring it in balance. But you're in structural cases, sometimes you have to have something else. I mean, that won't change.
It's not just structural. It is also a stress relieving. It's a whole discipline. So, you're not saying that this is the panacea. No. It's one of those things that allows our body to come in balance and be receptive and get us there so that we don't stress out so bad and just,
I think that's so cool because when you treat the human body in isolation, an isolated issue, so you treat that one area, you forget about all the other areas. And I think what Dr. Anderson's trying to say, and I think what you're piggybacking on is this is systemic. This is holistic. This is a receptor system that's throughout your body that's going to have an impact on every health concern.
Right. So it's what you eat, it's what you think, it's, and how we feel in our bodies is a real good indication of our overall health. So I really appreciate you coming and doing this tonight. It's really great. Thank you.
Are there receptors in the fascia?
Yes, yeah.
Wait, the question
Absolutely.
was, are there receptors in the fascia?
Absolutely.
And she said, absolutely. Go, don't get up there, Gail. Just ask the question, girl.
I'm not sure I know what a fascia is. How embarrassing.
Wait. It has to do with your connective tissue everywhere.
Okay,
Ask your question.
My question is, how does CBD oil help with weight loss? And it's interesting because marijuana makes you want to eat.
Again, marijuana, high THC, low CBD. Appetite, it's another symptom. It's not a symptom. Appetite is one of those things that is modulated, okay? So THC happens to stimulate it. But most people don't realize that because nobody knew about CBD, over time, marijuana has been cultivated to have a high THC, and now we know it doesn't have the CBD to help modulate it. That's why you get this. And CBD isn't the answer just either. It's not the opposite thing. It's probably going to be some combination of THC and CBD that ultimately will help people deal with their appetite and weight, basically.
I'm Gail. I want to know about neurological degenerative diseases such as Parkinson's and MS, what you recommend with CBD and how it helps and how it doesn't, and what kind of dosing.
This is a big area of research right now because, there's so many receptors in the brain, in the spinal cord. And there are this is the wild, you remember at the time when the tech companies back with Apple, it was just, all these tech companies were coming in the computer. It was like the Wild West. This is the same thing that's happening right now, is all these biotech companies are coming out trying to find how they can use the understanding of this ECS system to fight diseases like this. And it's amazing how close they're coming. And I think they will find the answer. There is I think GW Pharmaceutical has a drug out called Stavex. It's not legal in the United States yet, but it is for MS. And but again, they're taking very purified, high-dose molecules, and they haven't worked all that out. But I can't tell you how many biotech companies are out there scrambling to use this information to help those diseases. And in theory, they're going to be able to, because they're seeing that these diseases are the end result of not being modulated correctly in whatever that pathway for that disease, whether it's MS or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or whatever.
And would CBD oil, because with Parkinson's, you get your myofascial gets so stiff and tight and makes you rigid. Would that help release that?
Yeah, the fascia isn't what causes the rigidity. The rigidity comes from an imbalance in the nerves in the brain that go out to those areas. Now the fascia, because of that, will contract, but it comes secondary. It's not the first thing. The key is in the brain to fix. Okay, I was just my osteopathic association, my state osteopathic association. Just this last November, every year they put on a big conference to have the latest speakers, to know the latest information. And they had a group of doctors there who, I think one was an opiate addiction specialist, a psychiatrist, maybe a family doctor, who did a big presentation on CBD. And what their focus was the ECS system. That's what they wanted us to understand. But they had a video. Okay, they had a video of a Parkinson's patient. We watched them, the rigidity, the movement, gave him CBD oil. I don't know what product or how much or any of that kind of thing. They kind of time forwarded a little bit. And then you saw him walk like smooth. And then it wore off and back came the rigidity. And they were big proponents. And again, they were just saying, look, there's too much we don't know, but we know it's safe. Just take it.
So should you take it every day? Are you trying to constantly be supporting your ECS?
Yes.
Okay. And so to keep the inflammation down, to keep your ECS well-toned, daily helps.
Yeah, and the reason is this system is under constant assault by the environment, by what we breathe, by the psychological stress, by foods we eat that imbalance the system. So every day you're messing your system up. So I can't see why you wouldn't want to take it
Every day.
trying to help the balance until we find more specific ways and understandings of using it.
Hi, my name's David. I'm Gail's husband. I think one reason that she's interested, I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's for about 6 years now. So I know people. I go to Rocksteady Boxing, and we have a support group there that people talk about different things they use. I think most people are on a dopamine drug, although there are some that are not. There are some that are using only marijuana or CBD.
So here's the question. I mean, do you think that CBD, because I've read a little bit, seems to do a little bit of uptaking with certain neurotransmitters, and dopamine is a neurotransmitter. So where are we on that?
Again, the key word is modulating. It might be uptake, it might be downtake. Okay. It depends on what the situation is.
I mean, I think that on one hand, it could be seen as scary because there's so much we do not yet know. And then on the other hand, it could be so exciting because there's so many more good things to come around this entire endocannabinoid system.
What we do know, really, it's been around for 12,000 years. It is safe. And if you look at the story of just plant-based medicine, foxglove is where we got digitalis. Willow bark, aspirin. We've been using it people learn on their own what works, what doesn't work. It's been around forever.
I see two questions. Go ahead.
We just didn't know what it did.
Hi, I'm Laura. My family and I have been using CBD for about a year and a half and seen phenomenal results. We're huge, singing the praises and everything. But I have some people who have tried it and said that it makes them very sleepy. If you're saying that there's no danger or anything, what might be happening if they're having that reaction?
Okay.
Good question.
It is a good question because, a lot of the advertisements that you see when people are selling CBD says, oh, it helps you sleep better. It's not a sleep agent. It's not like a sleeping pill. What it does, it modulates the wake sleep cycle, and which is involved with what's called the circadian rhythm, okay? So it's trying to get you back into that mold. Depending on the person and where you are out of it, it might make you seem drowsy or sleepy, but it is not a sleep agent. Because I've had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I can't take it, I better not take it during the day because it's for sleep. It modulates the sleep-wake cycle, which many people have problems with, and with their circadian rhythm. And again, many things are involved with that. So when you take it, it's trying to help people improve that system. So there might be a period of time where taking it during the day makes you drowsy. That's the best way. But my guess is if you keep up with it, that would go away. Yeah.
So once your system feels stronger and supported and your receptors are functioning well, hopefully any kind of symptom that maybe caused you that sleep effect would go, because then your circadian rhythms and you're in homeostasis, et cetera, et cetera. All right, question. Please.
That's just some of the myths or misinformation that's out there. It's just a misinterpretation when somebody sees it's sleep.
Don't
give up. Yeah.
It seems like it's just a waiting to balance itself. That's what it seems like to me with respect to the sleep cycle and the circadian rhythm. Yeah. That's what it seems like. My name is Joy, and I want to ask a question with respect to how do you see muscle testing, the kinesiology system, with respect to dosing and the specific product with relationship to the person?
Okay. Now, I'm just going to give you my opinion, okay?
Now, I understand about that can be very subjective with respect
That's
to
my
kinesiology.
problem with it, right there.
I understand
You
that.
can't,
But if
quantum physics tells us the observer and the
Right.
observed
Will
affect each
affect.
other. And that's why I don't use kinesiology, because I can't 100% trust
Guarantee
it.
it.
But if you think you do it well, that might be one way to try to figure out for someone. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Right, okay. And then what do you see with respect to the relationship of the 361 points that we have, and I think there may be more, with respect to the acupuncture system and the immune system and the ECS system? How do you see the mapping? Is there a similarity? Because it looks like there may be a very strong similarity.
Oh, we haven't made all these connections because we thought they.
It seems
sit
like,
on my
to
hand.
me, I
I'll sit on
can't,
my
I
hand.
can't get
You know,
beyond.
you'd think she was Jewish because she's talking with her hands all the time. I don't understand.
I thought you said I was.
It's very intriguing to me,
Yeah.
the mapping of the ECS system.
Acupuncture points are in the fascia.
They are.
That's where they lay in the fascia. That's one of the new, whoever brought up the fascia, it is so sad. And there's a Fascial International Society of Researchers. The information that's out there, just Google, YouTube fascia. You'll see some wonderful videos. It hasn't filtered down. People, they thought it was an inert substance. Fascia is what controls all of it. I know.
It's everything. It encapsulates.
It's just a matter of time before we see how all these things integrate together, But, acupuncture was, life force, which is in all life force. Every culture has figured out a way to work with that. The Chinese called it qi. They learned how to manipulate it through these points in acupuncture. India is prana. Yoga originally started by body positions trying to unblock that flow. They have parts of karma and Ayurvedic medicine. Every culture has found ways to manipulate. My guess is part of that was they were manipulating this system, not knowing about it. Yeah.
But how cool is this? I mean, here we are on the cusp, really, of so many discoveries to come. And I will say, and this is the most political I'm going to be tonight. I would imagine big pharma in the FDA, which is just in total disarray around this. It really doesn't quite know how to handle this yet. So anyway, I promised everybody that we would go until 8 o'clock, and my clock says 8:01. So well, we'll be around afterwards, so we can ask again. So I have a number of people to thank. So first, I want to thank the Hatch, which is where we are. This is a co-working space, the grooviest co-working space in Indianapolis, and it's a place where people create. I want to thank Ron Miller from Cork and Cracker for being a great bartender. He's got a fabulous store down the street, and he's got a wine club, and they're doing all kinds of things. Tonight's sound engineer is Brian Wheat. He is the owner of the Village Recording Studio. He specializes in music, podcasts, and audiobooks. You can find him on Westfield Boulevard, right across from the fire station in beautiful downtown Broad Ripple. If you are wondering about the theme song to Ask the Resource Queen, Brian laid down all the audio tracks and edited them. Lainey Williams of Lainey and the Tramps sang the vocals, and I wrote the lyrics. You may recognize the song okay. And I want to thank, where are you? Sandy, Katie, two fabulous, smart, young women who helped me at the store. Thank you, Jen Marshall, who's over here taking pictures, designed the CBD Jubilee logo, and does all kinds of great things. Nancy Mead over here for being a great greeter and helper for me tonight. And I want to thank Dr. Rebecca Anderson. Yay. It's coming out of her pores, the information, and her fascia. It's coming out of her fascia. She has healing hands. She's an old friend, a dear friend. She's saved my entire family many times over. And thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys have been a great, great audience. I deeply appreciate you being here. I'm sure if you have more questions, we will try to answer them after the show. I really appreciate everyone, not just who's here, but if you're going to watch this on, as my mother calls it, the YouTube, that you enjoy. And I just wanted to say thank you. I'm your resource queen, Alix Litwack, and good night.